This video is probably going to be pretty long, but it's pretty important to me. So if you are interested in what I have to say, I would ask that you bookmark this video or add it to your YouTube watch later list or something like that if you don't have the time right now. But I've got a lot to say, a lot to go over, and I'm really excited. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time and just finally decided tonight I'm going to do it. So let's get into it. Why I chose to become a doctor of chiropractic, and this is really for a lot of my friends and family who maybe know some of the story, or just like, yeah, but what's Ben doing now? You know, sort of an explanation for it. And not that I really need to explain myself, but I thought, I have some interesting ideas to share and things that I just wanted to let everybody know. And I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to get up on my soapbox here. But basically why I chose to become a doctor of chiropractic. So for those of you who don't know, I am in my third trimester of a chiropractic program at the Los Angeles College of Chiropractic, which is part of the Southern California University of Health Sciences in Whittier, California. So I've been out here since September of 2013 and absolutely loving it. The program is very intense, very hard. I mean, we don't get summers off. It's 10 trimesters, which is 3 1/3 years, which is really like, if it was semesters, it would be 5 years. So, how did I decide to do this? If you don't know me, before this, I worked as an engineer for pretty much 10 years, and mostly technical companies in more of like a business, analytics, sales and operations, distribution capacity, which is basically throwing around a bunch of corporate mumbo jumbo. But I had a pretty good career. It was pretty stable. Was making pretty good money, and was well respected. Was pretty much a top performer. Won a lot of awards. But the whole time I was doing it, I was like, this isn't right. Like, I got to figure out something else. But then, your ego kind of gets into it, and like, the money gets pretty good, and the accolades and people value you there, and you feel like you get a really strong sense of self-worth from your job and your career, and get ties into it, and you get this like two polarities kind of pulling you one way, like, no, stay with this, people respect you, you're making good money, it's a respectable career, it's stable, it's secure. And then the other's like, no, this isn't right, like, I should be doing something else, this isn't me, like, I can do this and I'm a good fit for it, but it's not a good fit for me. And you have this tug of war, and that went on for many years. And I think at one point I'd even applied to grad school to do environmental engineering, and that's a whole nother story of how that basically collapsed on itself. But in retrospect, I mean, it might have been a rewarding career, but I'm glad that I didn't. I'm happy. I'm very glad to be doing what I am doing now. And and a lot of people don't understand about chiropractic, especially people who haven't experienced it and don't have their maybe preconceived notion about what it is. And I wanted to go over a little bit of that, because I think a lot of people think that chiropractors are just back doctors, and that is true to some degree. Like, yes, we handle the back, and a lot of chiropractors limit themselves to like pain treatment, back and neck pain. And I think that's fine if they want to go down that road, but chiropractic is so much more. And for those of you who don't know, chiropractic started in 1895, and started with a guy who had dabbled in other forms of healing named Daniel David Palmer, who met a janitor who had a hump on the back of his neck, and he was also had suffered from deafness for most of his life, and seen a bunch of doctors about the hump on his back, seen a bunch of doctors with the deafness, and no one was able to do anything. And D.D. Palmer just thought, well, maybe if I can move the back into place, I can do something about it, and basically performed the first chiropractic adjustment on him, and his hearing was restored after something like 17 years. The guy was named as Harvey Lillard. You can look that story up for yourself. And so chiropractic is much more than back and neck pain. Basically, the philosophy is you have a communication center, your spinal cord, which runs from your brain, which is the boss of your body, to through your nerves, which control the rest of your body. And so your brain is basically the big boss, as my Egyptian pathology professor likes to call it. And so this big boss sends all of its signals out through your body through the central and peripheral nervous systems. And if there's some interference, if signals aren't going through, then you can have possible malfunctioning. And this interference is often called subluxation, or to be more technical, vertebral subluxation complex, such that when a bone is out of place, it can impinge on nerves. And now there's a lot of controversy on the science of exactly how this works. I won't get into it, but that's the basic philosophy. And without proper flow of the information from the big boss down to the rest of the body, you can have malfunctioning depending on where the subluxation is occurring and where the interference is. So basically, if the channel of information that ran from your brain to the rest of your body went through your right arm instead of your back, chiropractors would be right arm doctors. But humans evolved, and most chordata vertebrate animals evolved to have their spinal cord going through their back. So chiropractors are back doctors. The word chiropractic means done by hand. And so one of the reasons I chose chiropractic was that the philosophy resonated with me the most. And basically, the idea is what we call the health of the hygiene model, that when you're well, you just need to keep doing the things to stay well that you would do if you were not well to get well. So it's a drugless, surgeryless healing system. Now, there are going to be times when obviously surgery is necessary. If I chop off my arm, I'm not going to go to my chiropractor and say, hey, can you adjust C1? I think that'll get the arm back on, or pour a green smoothie over it. I'm going to go to the medical doctor and say, please reattach the arm. But overall, if you're supplying the conditions you need for health, and one of them is a spinal column that's in line, you're going to experience health. And so this really resonated with a lot of the sort of raw foods philosophy that I had gotten into, which basically the theory behind that is that we evolved as primates in the jungles of Africa eating fruits and vegetables as our primary sources of food. And as we left the tropics, we had to find other sources of food to make do, because fruits and vegetables weren't as plentiful. We had to start hunting. We had to start eventually agriculture. And these things were much later on in our evolution. And we originally evolved millions of years ago as frugivorous animals. And we didn't have heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis, cancer, as far as we know back then. These are all sort of modern diseases of affluence. And so these are part of the conditions for health that we evolved with. That you don't hear of chimpanzees, getting these diseases. Maybe if they're in their captivity and they're eating things that aren't their natural diet, that can happen. But this is just one of the conditions of health. And so for a long time I always thought that what we might call the alternative fields of healthcare were just a bunch of nonsense and people who couldn't hack it at traditional education system, whether that be engineering, medicine, the traditional sciences, things like that. And my background growing up, and I went to an Ivy League school, everybody was really stuck up, and you just sort of get into that groupthink mindset of like, we know what we're doing. And it was kind of funny because I originally started undergrad as a bioengineering major, and that was right around the time that the pharmaceutical companies started advertising on television. And I remember seeing these ads for these drugs, and they're like, okay, well, it cures depression, but it may cause thoughts of suicide, killing yourself, blah blah blah. They would just rattle off this list of side effects that would last for like 20, 30 seconds, and just like it wasn't a big deal. And something inside me, way back then, before I had any interest in health or anything like that, and I was still like drinking, a giant bottle of Mountain Dew every day, something hit me and was like, this is wrong. Like, there's something, no, this is not right. And I didn't really know what or why, but I just went with my gut and changed majors. And so I ended up doing mechanical engineering because I really liked math and physics. So I was always really a math and science left-brain individual, and it's not really been to the past year or two where I'm like, I should really work on the right brain too, because I don't want to be some, human computer. It's ridiculous. So back then, yeah, that I made that shift, and for a long time I just had this attitude about my health, especially when you're in your 20s. You just really think that you're invincible, and I didn't smoke or do drugs or do anything really. I drank here and there. I went vegetarian in my early 20s, so I just sort of like, yeah, I'm doing a lot better than other people. Like, I can, do whatever I want, and really didn't take good care of myself and didn't really feel the bad effects of it for a while. So when you're young, your body's really resilient, and you could take a lot of abuse, and unfortunately, you're working up debt that you got to pay back later. But it's hard to explain that to somebody who's not feeling it. And so it wasn't till my late 20s that the body really started falling apart, and both inside and outside. And I remember when I was younger, like going to a batting cage and just like being out of shape and be like, well, I used to play baseball, and throwing my back out and swinging too hard at a pitch, and going to a chiropractor because just thought, oh, well, I hurt my back, I should go to a chiropractor. And that was my first experience. It was a really bad experience with a chiropractor. He tried to sell me a bunch of vitamin pills, like right off the bat. It's like, you got to buy these vitamins. You got to buy the vitamins you buy in the store are no good. You got to get the ones from me. And I'm just like, okay, bro, I'm not stupid. Like, what's I'm not buying any vitamins. Like, I came here because I threw out my back, And so he did this really weird technique on me. I might have been some kind of like weird Thompson drop technique, if you know about chiropractic. But he didn't really like pop my back, as they say, like adjust me, get what we in chiropractic we call cavitation. And so I thought, this is a bust. Like, I just paid this guy, and I didn't even get like the satisfaction of like him getting cavitation on an adjustment. He didn't pop my back, as I would say. And it was funny because when I was like 16, 17, I was like really into cracking my own back by like going like sideways and all that, and it was just it was really satisfying to me. Like, I always liked cracking my knuckles, and I remember like being a kid and like being in the car with my mom, just being like, cracking on my knuckles, and her just being like, stop that, you're driving me crazy. And like, it was just always a hobby that I liked. But yeah, so that was like a bad experience with chiropractic. And then, as a lot of you guys know, I was really into foot bag in my 20s, like really hardcore. And I still play from time to time, but not very much. But I several years back like really hurt my knee really bad, just like a repetitive stress injury from doing some certain tricks in like really bad biomechanics, and messing up my knee to the point where like I couldn't really play anymore, and I was really depressed. And that was the time that I got into stand-up comedy because I couldn't play hacky sack. That was a blessing, and that lasted for a little while. But this knee wasn't getting any better, and I had tried a bunch of things, stretching my hamstrings and all this, and went to see a medical doctor, and they're like, well, you got to get a new knee. And here I am at 26, 27 years old, being like, new knee? Like, dude, I'm healthy, and I'm 27. Like, I'm not getting a new knee. That's ridiculous. Like, so again, my intuition was like, no, that's not right. Like, if you're 40, get a new knee, but I'm too young for that. And it just happened like by chance. that one day at work they brought in these guys. There's this company called Erosti, and they said, well, if you have sports injuries that you'd like to have somebody take a look at, these guys specialize in that, and you can get a free first appointment. And I thought, yeah, sure, like, okay. I didn't really know what they were. It was like called Erosti and like this, and I had this knee problem and make an appointment. It was cool because they like came to our office, and I went into a room with this dude, and what I didn't know was that he was 25 years old and fresh out of chiropractic school. What I did know was that he was this smart-ass kid who acted like he knew exactly what was wrong, and he was very sure that he was going to fix it. And I was just like, well, this is free, so, give it a shot, bro. Like, let's see what you got. And so he looked at my knee, and he says, oh, well, the problem's not really with your knee. The problem's with your quadricep muscle, your quad. And I said, no, my quad doesn't hurt, my knee hurts. Like, the problem's with the knee, buddy. He's like, no, you know what, I've seen a lot of these, I've dealt with a lot of these, and it's your quad. He's like, what's going on is that you injured your quad somehow, probably from slamming it on the ground a lot. I'm like, how did you know that? It's like, yeah, I've seen this before. And you've injured your quad. The quad has gotten twisted up. The muscle fascia is twisted. It's tried to heal itself by shooting scar tissue on it, but now it's just wound it up even more, and it's pulling unevenly on the knee joint, and it's going to keep doing that until we fix this quad. And I thought, well, okay, that kind of makes sense. He says, yeah, have you seen anybody else about it? They want to give you a new knee? I said, yeah, they wanted to put me in the knife for knee surgery, but I just didn't think it was right. He's like, no, it's not right. That's treating the symptoms, not the cause. The symptoms is the knee pain. The cause is the twisted up quadricep muscle. And I thought, okay, maybe this guy this sounds like plausible, like, okay, well, it's like, what are you going to do, And so he did this thing called, they call it Erosti. It has multiple names. It's soft tissue technique, like fascial release techniques, but there's different names for it because different people have created different programs that they teach. So it's also called myofascial release technique or active release technique, and Erosti stands for assistance in the recovery of sports and tissue injuries, or assistance in the rapid recovery of sports and tissue injuries. Anyway, it's a fucking miracle. Like, if you have any kind of like, knee, hip, elbow pain, like any kind of joint pain related to a sports injury, you need to go see these guys. And if you have an insurance, it's a copay. It's like $30. It was like $30 a session for me, and I mean, it was dirt cheap. And what they basically did was he took his thumb to my quad and basically like this way, and just started doing this like really intense deep tissue massage, but it was more like deep tissue torture. And it hurt pretty bad, but he basically, like, the idea is that you put pressure on this muscle so it contracts to fight you, but then eventually as a reflex it relaxes. And so you do this on the muscle, and it takes like, it can take almost an hour for a session of them just ever so slowly like moving their thumb over the muscle like a very slow pace, and very hard, very deep, like as deep as they can possibly press, I think. And it loosens up the muscle. And the first session hurt like hell. The second session hurt. And the third session wasn't too bad. And the knee has never given me a problem since. That, I think that was 2010. And I didn't even realize that the guy was a chiropractor. But I sort of kept in touch with him because I was like, this is the dude that fixed my knee. Like, he like gave me my life back, to some degree. And so concurrently, while that was happening, I was also experiencing a lot of like internal problems. My digestive system had just gotten like out of control, and I had all these like food sensitivities, and like every meal I ate was just like tearing me up, and like constipation and like stomach pain, and it just like wasn't working. And that's how I kind of found the whole like raw foods thing. So it was like I just needed to eat something else because what I was eating was just killing me. I needed to clean out, and the more I did it, the more I got into it, and like the more it just maybe not just feel better physically, but like emotionally. And I had this newfound energy, and I just got this like crazy mental clarity. And I was finishing my workday at like 3:30 instead of going to almost 6 because my mind was so clear. And I'd just be like sitting at the computer at the end of the day, like, guess gotta act busy. Like I was doing like, 1.5 to 2x the workload of people in the same position with me, and I was finishing like an hour and a half early, and it was just sort of like, you know, and that's really when the thoughts about the job, started to change. Like when I just, started to get more mental clarity, I couldn't escape from this idea that this wasn't right. Like even though I was just like killing it, I was cleaning up, everybody loved me. I was just sort of like, this is not me. And about age 30, which was pretty much 2 years ago, I just went through this like big existential crisis of like, okay, I'm 30, like what if I'm doing this at 50? Like what's that gonna look like? And that had always scared me, even though people said, look at the future, like what if you keep doing this, what's gonna be different? And it was like too scary to even look at, but I was like, I gotta face it now. And I was just like, it's just like not a good fit, and the longer I do it, the harder it's gonna be to leave. And even though I had like a mortgage, and I'd been in Austin for like 9 years, it was just like, I was like, this is too important to like let it slide. And it's kind of funny because I started thinking, okay, what am I going to do instead? Um, and I knew that I always liked to help people, but I always felt like I never wanted to be a doctor. Like that just, they always seemed like stuck up and arrogant, and I just didn't want to do it. So I started thinking about like, well, first the thing, I didn't even know if that was, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I remember reading the Steve Pavlina article. If you don't know Steve Pavlina, he blogs about personal development. He's got a fantastic, fantastic blog, definitely worth checking out. And I think it was in one of his newsletters, which are really good too. Subscribe to the newsletters. It's totally great stuff. And he said, if you're thinking about taking your life in a new direction, but you don't know what you want to do, what you might want to think about is like if you play video games or role-playing games or anything like that, like look at the characters that you usually play in those role-playing games, because those are like your true self trying to shine through. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, well, I thought back, I've played Dungeons and Dragons probably since I was 13 years old. And a little known fact about me, and I kind of had gotten into it recently again in recent years with a group of friends who were like all in our 30s and like all playing D&D again. That was a blast. I fucking miss you guys if you're watching this video. I fucking miss all the good times of Zelzenord and the crew. But I look back and like even like the very first characters I made, they were all healers. Like I was always like the cleric or the druid or the shaman, or one character was like a warlord, so he was like a fighter, but he had all these like heroic healing abilities. And I thought, man, that's like, I always want to play the healer. Like I always want to play the healer. That's really me. That's always been, I've always enjoyed being of service and helping people. And I thought, that's what I got to do. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. I don't want to be like one of those weird I didn't want to like. There's a lot of like health bloggers, which and they sell like these ebooks, and I was like, that's just not me. Like I don't want to do that. Like I don't want to do it that way. Like that works for them, but I just don't have that kind of personality. Like that doesn't feel right in the gut. And so I thought about it some more, and thought of chiropractic came to my mind, because I was like, well, I had still stayed in touch with that first chiropractor who fixed my knee, and then whenever I would go to like he moved to another city, so I went to see this other chiropractor, and then I went to see like a different guy for like a soft tissue issue, and it's like every chiropractor I would go to, I would find myself like talking shop with them. I'm like, oh, what's your philosophy on it? Like, where'd you go to school? Because it was just like interesting to me, but I never like pictured myself doing that. But then in that moment of self-reflection a couple years ago, I was like, that's a possibility, like a thing I could do, you know? And so I called up that first guy, Dr. Askey, and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What does it take? And, he was like, well, let's have a call, immediately, whenever you want. I will. This guy was like, just made himself available, like totally gave me like hours of his time. I asked him every question under the book, and I kind of had my tutu on, like, I'm too old to do this. I'm too, this or that or whatever. And he's like, no, you can do it. There are people that were in school that were in their 50s, It's like, if you wanted to, he's like, you would make an excellent one. And just having like, people that really believe in you is really important. And to get that kind of encouragement, and so that was it. And I started looking at schools, and so the reason, did we get to 26 minutes and I'm finally explaining like why I chose to be a doctor of chiropractic and not a doctor of like medicine or naturopathy or osteopathy or something? But it really just basically came down to the philosophy that chiropractic believes that health is your natural state, whereas medicine sort of believes that you're born with this lemon, like it's gonna fall apart. And if it's a chronic problem, the only thing they really offer are solutions to treat symptoms. Basically suppress symptoms, like, oh, you have an upset stomach, let's give you, you have a headache, let's give you a pill to make the pain go away, basically numb the pain. Well, whatever is causing the headache is still going on. Like you have a runny nose, well, let's give you something that makes your nose stop running. It doesn't really treat the cold or whatever's causing that. It just suppresses the symptom, which is usually the body like either trying to tell you that something's wrong, or it's trying to like get rid of whatever it is that's in your body causing the problem in the first place. It's trying to like detoxify, get it out through one of the detoxification channels, whether it's like the nose or the urine or the feces or the lymphatic system or through the skin. It's like manifests as acne. We have all these diseases, and we turn that off. We actually like inhibit the body's ability to heal, because these acute symptoms of chronic diseases are really like ways that the body like tries to expel things. We like fight that. It's like, no, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna act normal, but it's like, no, I got this disease. I want to get the disease out. No, shut up. And so, having been through these experiences of like having healed my gut issues with raw food, and seeing this thing like, okay, with the knee issue, well, it wasn't really the knee. It was like the muscle. Like we attacked the cause of the problem, not the symptom, and then it got like better. And I just realized like, the more I looked at like the Western medicine and how we treat disease, it's like we got the acute stuff, nailed down, but like the chronic stuff, everybody's dying of. It's like cancer keeps going up, heart attacks, heart disease keeps going, osteoporosis, all these terrible chronic diseases like keep going up, and it's like we gotta find the new drug that fights it. They're like, lowers your cholesterol. It's like, why is your cholesterol high in the first place? And you ever think about that? You might be eating, all the foods you're eating are high in cholesterol, and if you just ate plants which don't have any cholesterol, you might not have a problem with your cholesterol. And so I felt like, medical science was this like, this like scientific circle jerk of like, we got to find like the little chemical that like suppresses this one thing in the body. Like the common sense was completely gone. But hey, it like made you look really cool if you could come up with this pharmaceutical drug that is really long name, and you could sell it and make billions of dollars, and it would have all these side effects, and you could sell other pharmaceutical drugs to handle those side effects. And it was just like nonsense. Like I was never in the game to like, make a lot of money. Sure, I want to make money, but it's like service to people comes first. And like really fixing the problem, I would rather like really fix the problem. And what a lot of people also don't know is that chiropractic school is actually kind of a little too much like medical school. We learn everything that medical doctors learn as far as anatomy, physiology, pathology, diagnosis, all of that. We just don't learn surgery, and we don't learn pharmacology because we don't treat with drugs or surgery, so we learn spinal manipulation instead. I'll put up a chart here. Basically shows the amount of hours are pretty much equal. It's just that instead of pharmacology and surgery, we learn spinal manipulation. So it's like I get a chance to learn everything I want to know about the human body, and none of the things that I believe are not useful, you know. Okay, surgery is important in emergency situations, but to treat chronic diseases, like, you know, putting a balloon in someone's heart to fix the problem that they're eating too much bacon, well, you can charge them 200 grand for it, but they're going to die in 2 years after anyway, so why not just get them to stop eating the bacon? You know, have oatmeal for breakfast instead. God, have strawberries, you know, just like make orange juice by yourself. That's so good. Just cut up a watermelon, cut it in half, and eat it like cereal. That's like less preparation than like pouring a bowl of cereal. It's way better for you. Make you feel way better too. So that's kind of my outlook on it. I hope that answered all the questions. Let me see. I made a list of things to talk about. Did I hit all of them? Yeah, pretty much. So that's it. Thanks for watching this whole 32-minute shebang. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. Really looking forward to going out there and being of service and making a big difference and helping people. So thank you for watching.